At the turn of the millennium, our cultural climate began to shift from the bop optimism of the 90s towards the great uncertainty of a digital age. Collective anonymity, untethered expression.
Biodigital jazz, man.
From Kata to Fight Club to Transmetropolitan and all the rest of the examples I'm throwing up on the screen right now, this was an era steeped in the art of doubt. The trenchcoat queen of this dislocated scene was, and still is, The Matrix. Caught somewhere between an anime music video and a coffee-stained copy of Simulacra and Simulation, it flipped the script on sci-fi and the boundaries of the American blockbuster. So naturally, the next decade was spent ripping it off. Some were fun, many are outright embarrassing, and then there's Equilibrium. Is it bad? My adult mind says yes, but my teenage heart doesn't care. Well, does that mean it's good?
Always expecting the worst.
In a totalitarian dystopia where all forms of emotional expression are outlawed and every feeling has been eradicated through mass medication, a governmental enforcement agency is tasked with destroying anything and anyone capable of spreading love, hate, joy, or dismay. When Agent Preston misses his numbing dose of daily drugs, his feelings return, and so begins his quest to dismantle this oppressive regime. Before we work our way through the fact that Equilibrium can't form a cogent thought without shitting the bed, you should know that there's plenty on the face of this that I really do admire.
If you will be so kind.
The confluence between harsh fascist architecture and cold modernist constructions perfectly encapsulates the swallowing, pummeling force of this tyrannical state. By contrast, the last vestiges of personal freedom are but dilapidated husks, the decaying remnants of artistry and individuality. When the film stops saying what it means long enough to just show us, its wordless storytelling speaks volumes louder than one word of its stilted dialogue.
What's the point of your existence?
To feel.
As the movie progresses and Preston slips the cuffs of his chemical conditioning, he becomes more perceptive to and affected by the violence and cruelty that stains his antiseptic existence. Early on, when he's drugged up on prosium, the action is obfuscated and bloodless. Only once he ditches his dose and regains a clarity of thought does the claret come spilling forth. On the whole, the action here is truly a glory to behold. A phosphorus flash of muzzle flares and acrobatics, executed by a protagonist so comically overpowered, every threat from beginning to end is riddled with holes or cleaved in twain, without even a moment of challenge. For that, we need to thank Gun Kata, a firearms-based martial art invented specifically for this feature that looks part ridiculous and part ridiculously cool.
I'm gonna come!
as a standout addition to Equilibrium's arsenal, you'll most likely be so smitten with the shrapnel and silliness of it, you won't even question why nobody thinks to just shoot him in the torso. While Equilibrium was a sizable financial disappointment, 20 years later, it's fondly remembered as the underrated sibling to the Wachowskis' magnum opus of philosophizing and fisticuffs, which doesn't do Christian Bale's swoopy arm noises any favours. Each shares a penchant for elaborate action and thematic threads of suppressed liberty, the illusionary facades that imprison our minds, and what differentiates the living from the truly alive, but there's an elephantine difference that sets the two apart. The Matrix is an amalgamation of broad influences, allegorical interpretations, and metaphysical musings, broken down to their base components and rebuilt from the ground up into something new. Think of it as taking the raw ingredients from a wide array of recipes and using those disparate flavors and textures to formulate an original meal. Equilibrium, well, it's like taking the packaging off some fast food and trying to pass it off as your own cooking.
Delightfully devilish.
Equilibrium.
This film is, quite simply, a barely altered patchwork of the Wachowskis, Aldous Huxley, Orson Welles, and Ray Bradbury. The martial arts gunplay and monochromatic chic of The Matrix, the opiated masses of Brave New World, The Thought Police and Big Brother of 1984, the book burning and entire narrative arc of Fahrenheit 451, I honestly can't think of another example of a movie that so flagrantly assimilates then regurgitates its undigested textual touchstones without adding anything of its own.
You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility.
All art is subject to influence, I know, and I'm not the kind of sneering dick who thinks the wheel needs to be reinvented every time you want to take a trip. I mean, V for Vendetta picks at the same literary bones as Equilibrium, but that embraces its own subversive elements, with a dash of flair and the good sense to expand and supplement its inspirations with plenty of fresh turns. This, on the other hand, is such a desaturated monument of cultural osmosis, even writer-director Kurt Wimmer was forced to fess up on the commentary track when he admitted,
"All of these were films that I was accused of unapologetically ripping off to make this film. And, you know, it's true."
Which is just a gold medal example of saying the quiet part out loud.
Oh, good for you!
As all-encompassing and blatant as the intellectual property daylight robbery is, I don't begrudge this just for its mashup approach to plotting. What concerns me is that Equilibrium seems to think that plagiarizing something clever is the same as comprehending it.
Wrong!
This leads to a movie that wields its references with no real understanding of what they mean in relation to each other. Let's look at the fundamental beliefs of the three literary titans Equilibrium is indebted to. Huxley was a politically enigmatic spiritualist, Orwell was a skeptical democratic socialist, Bradbury was a staunch conservative and Zen Buddhist. So, you know, wildly different spiritual and political beliefs, which this film categorically ignores before stuffing them all into the same box, and rubber stamping them all, freedom equals good. The totalitarian city-state of Libria is run by the Tetragrammaton Council. a title derived from the 4 transliterated Hebrew letters that denote the true Judeo-Christian name of God. Well, somebody didn't pass on the memo about the etymological origins of the word tetragrammaton, given that their namesake's iconography here is largely based on Nazi imagery.
Why, God, why?
Ah yes, confusing Judaism and Nazism. Nothing absolutely disgusting about that.
Complete paradox.
On top of these ideas Wimmer clearly doesn't quite understand, often the reference points they choose to sample are actually saying the absolute opposite of what Equilibrium seems to think they are. The Tetragrammaton Council is adorned with statues of Atlas bearing the weight of the world, an image synonymous with objectivism and libertarianism. Political philosophies that push aggressively against governmental encroachment and towards free market capitalism and unqualified individualistic freedom. You know, the absolute antithesis of this organization. Not to mention, these statues are art in a world where all art is banned. Then there's the use of prosium, a mandatory drug to ensure the unwavering, numb, anhedonic compliance of the populace.
Prosium.
Okay, so if prosium inhibits all emotions, why build your judicial, educational, and political systems around the suppression and eradication of all forms of art when the narcotized proletariat are unaffected and incapable of generating any emotional response? Oh, so there's a reason for Sean Bean to get Sean Beaned. Fair enough. What of prosium itself? A combination of Prozac and Valium. The former is an SSRI that combats depressive compulsive conditions, whilst chemically encouraging elevated mood and emotional latitude. The latter is a benzodiazepine intended to alleviate anxiety. Now, I can tell you firsthand that neither of these turns you into an indifferent, submissive brick of a person. So why is this film hell-bent on proclaiming that these legitimate mental health medications are actually lobotomizing doses of poison bent on neutering the human spirit?
I've asked myself that same question, sir. I don't know.
I mean, that's some ill-informed Scientology-ass amoral misinformation, and it's not even a conviction that Equilibrium is capable of standing behind with any consistency or coherence. Here, Preston talks about his ability to get into the headspace of rogue sense offenders.
I'm able, on some level, to sense how an offender thinks, to put myself in their position.
What he just described is empathy, a form of emotional understanding. Then there's the fear, anger, and gloating pride of just about everyone else.
He is feeling. He is the worm that has been eating at the core of our great society.
Someone call Carly Rae Jepsen because there's emotion all over the place. This isn't about plot holes, this is about Equilibrium not having a whole plot. Just hastily copied Cliff's notes that are immediately tossed aside whenever someone realizes that reading is hard. When I think of Equilibrium's chalk and cheese, oil and water blend of textual talking points and philosophical jaw flapping, I think of this scene from Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
And you know what? Let me tell you something about these tattoos, okay? That is Buddhist, that is Nordic, that is Hindu, that's just gibberish. They are completely conflicting ideologies, and that does not make you a citizen of the world. It makes you full of shit.
By searching for profundity or scholarly substance in this botched remix of dystopian fiction, you're only going to wind up significantly stupider than you were before Christian Bale grabbed a long coat and an American accent and set sail for Dumbtown. While I've spent the majority of this video cutting away at the layers upon layers of copy-pasted bastardized flab, there is more to this than soft boys with Berettas who don't know how to hide books. I can't help but find something extremely endearing about how sincerely Equilibrium tries to be outspoken as it stumbles and bites through its tongue. How it keeps courageously marching forward, heart beating brazenly, unaware that its brain fell out of its arse a few miles back. This may well be one of the most derivative, unconscionably stupid features to ever position itself as a thoughtfully intelligent piece of work, but even if Equilibrium never quite finds a balance between its plagiarized pontifications and fun-time flailing theatrics, I've got to admit, it sure is engaging in some of the right and all the wrong ways. Somehow this is the smartest film the director has made for all our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, Scared Confusion, Jake R, and Nicholas Lair-Revere, and a bad guy getting his face chopped off for all these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. So was Equilibrium a dorm room DVD mainstay for you as well as me, and how do you feel about it now? Let us know down in the comments, and share these videos with a friend or wherever you do that sort of thing on the internet. If you're in a position to do so, why not check out our Patreon at the description in the link below, where you can help out the channel and get access to some cool extras. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.